Moving into proofing of the wrists and the fingers, I'll be sharing a perspective from Yuri Marmerstein, who is a hand balancer, acrobat, and a performer, and a really nice mover in his own way. And the idea is of tuning the instrument when it comes to proofing of the wrists and fingers. The idea being that if you do own a guitar or a type of instrument, you know that it doesn't always sound the same every day. Sometimes you need to tune one string up, sometimes there's always one type of string that's always flat, very rarely sharp, and you have to search through these ranges to first of all see if in that day these sensations, these common blockages or any other blockages or restrictions are present, and likewise, as has been mentioned already, to generally prepare the wrists for movement by getting the blood flow in there, the synovial fluids and things too. One of the things that should be mentioned with exploration or proofing of the wrists and fingers is that it's very much an act of mobilization. So again, if you have, and you should have been practicing your wrist mobilization routines, you will have noticed that it's very different to the prehabilitative work that's defined more as mobility, because in the mobility routines, we are focused more on the idea of developing strength through the ranges. Hence, we have the movements like the first knuckle push-up, like the fist thumb rolling, the wrist fist extension. These movements are designed to build strength in somewhat of a classical linear fashion. The other routines, which are more tailored towards mobilization, essentially means you're going through your ranges in order to prepare them and accommodate them for subsequent movement practice. So this type of exploration falls more under the category of mobilization. So if you do feel that you still need some strength development, that would be something that's done separately, whether that's through forearm development or specific movements for strengthening the wrists and fingers, as was aforementioned. So as well as mobilizing the ranges of the wrists in this exploration, we are also exposing it to the pressures and loads that are likely to be faced in the subsequent practice as well, whether that's full body in terms of handstand, or whether that's partial body weight in terms of locomotion. I like to start with mapping of the first knuckle. From here, just mapping along the first knuckle from inside to outside. You can go from left to right. Just working in here. Again, I can even work with circles. If I think of this as a plate that's being dropped and it makes this, this is where I'm mapping. I can map in these directions through the first knuckle, through the heel of the hands as well. Just checking it out. Now, normally with the wrists, once you start working with extension, whether that's extension in the fingers or extension in the wrist, generally you will then feel that, yeah, I need to do some flexion. So it's very common that we'll be switching back and forth, thumbs as well as fingers, mapping, and then working into extension type work with fists, opening, closing, externally rotating, internally rotating, and then of course back into extension again, working with circles. Many of these are some of the very common frames that you will have worked in quite a linear fashion with the circles and things previously, and pulses. Just working around, exploring, and now also incorporating into the elbows. The elbows are coming out, coming above, coming below, internal rotation, external, also working into the shoulders and the elbows. Be very deliberate, even though it comes almost through the random. It is not just, I wave my elbows around and no, I want to see, I can feel what needs to be opened, I can feel what needs to be explored. I know what was perhaps feeling strange yesterday or the day before, and so I check it out. Was it just something that was just a bit tweaky that day, or is it the onset of something that could turn into a potential restriction or even an injury? few pulses with the elbows. Mapping the wrist. Circles of the wrist, which is also affecting into the shoulder and the elbow. A very effective explorative tool, which also maps the body against the floor. The same here. Keeping the wrist in contact with the floor at all times, not letting it come up like this, keeping it mapped. Working with both, back and forth. And now with loading, simply just applying some body weight to these frames. You don't have to have a perfect scat push-up position, hollow body, no one really cares. I come to the floor because I might be working with flexion, or I might be working with extension. However it is, I just expose some of the load. Here, more left, more right. If you're locomoting, the load is never going to be equal as it is with handstands directly from on top. It might be coming from the side, it might be coming from this side. Mapping. Again, when I feel the need for it, back into wrist flexion, extension. Where necessary, you can work individual fingers, exploring them. The rolling movements, now incorporating more with circles, loading. A couple very nice frames is just to lift the body weight above the wrists and just work with circles, again mapping the weight around the palm of the hand in the circles. So as I'm working with this circle here, I'm feeling the weight, again as before, working and mapping in this direction. So going back and to the front. This can also be done in a one-handed fashion. And as I said, the intention can come from higher up here. It could be the feet moving, or I could actually be moving the wrist. You can see it in this fashion, you can see it working. And mapping it against the floor and also loading it as well. And one of the last tools that's really useful, especially if you're going to be working into locomotion work, is stimulus to the hand. So stimulus to the hand in terms of when you hit the floor. Like this, impact. So this compression impact will happen from time to time, and it can over time cause issues. I myself, after practicing more capoeira than I did previously, which basically means I started capoeira when I didn't do it before, was these types of compression stresses that were unfamiliar to me. So incorporating something simple like palm drumming, just taking the palm of your hand and drumming it against the floor. You can bring the stimulus more above from here. You can work to the outside of the hands, letting the hands really soft. And again, the pisiform, which is what we use for our turning. The back of the hands, which are often quite sensitive because they don't get much floor contact. The fingers loose. You don't need to go nuts, but if you do have quite sturdy hands, and it's okay, you can give them a bit of a beating. And lastly, also the fingertips. Perfect. Now, if that doesn't inspire you for some locomotion activity, I don't know what will. So that was proofing of the wrists and the fingers. I'm using a variety of tools, focusing on the idea of mobilizing through the joints. As we said, if you need more specific strengthening tools, then you should consult them separately, and also providing some loading stimulus in anticipation of the work to come.